Let's talk about my favourite books of all time. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Carly. I'm a mixed genre mood reader, and today I'm going to be telling you all about my favourite books. These are books that I absolutely adore, books I think about on a daily basis, and books that got some sort of a reaction out of me, whether it's a thriller with a jaw-dropping twist, a book that made me cry, gave me goosebumps. I love seeing other people's favourite book videos because I feel like not only does it give an insight into what sort of reader they are, but I feel like it also gives an insight into their personality. These books represent my multiple moods and personalities perfectly. They also made me remember why I love reading, and also why it's important to DNF books that you're not enjoying, because there will always be a book out there that's perfect for you. First up, we have got The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is a magical realism time slip romance novel. I know, we're starting with a romance. This follows the story of Clementine, who moves into her aunt's magical apartment and one day comes home to find a strange man in her kitchen. This man is just her type and everything that she would usually fall for, but there's a problem. He lives in the past. And so we learn whenever Clementine is at a crossroads in her life and she's facing a difficult decision that she doesn't know what to do, she ends up traveling back in time by 7 years, where she meets this man. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Ashley Poston is a magical realism queen. I absolutely love her books, and this one is my favourite that she's written. It is just such a lush book. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me want to eat lemon pie. The food descriptions in it are honestly so delicious. And yeah, if you love a romance book with something that's a little bit different, then definitely give this one a go because I absolutely loved it. Next up, we have got Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This is one of the only horror books I have ever given a 5-star rating to. I absolutely bloody loved it. It follows the story of Rosemary, who meets Ash at a farmer's market and becomes completely mesmerised and obsessed with not just her, but also the things that she's selling. The bars of soap, the beeswax candles, and the most decadent cupcakes. So Rosemary just becomes more and more obsessed with Ash. It's almost consuming her, this obsession. But as a reader, there's this sense of creeping dread throughout the whole book that makes us think maybe Ash is hiding something and she has some secrets. All I'll say is go into this book blind and just prepare yourself for the most unhinged ending ever. Next up, we have got The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I have actually already spoken about this book on my channel. This was in my May reading wrap-up, which was my first ever video. I'll say exactly what I said in that video. I honestly don't feel like I'm intelligent enough to even begin to try and explain the plot of this book. It has got a really unique and clever magic system that actually took me quite a while to understand. The story follows Sybil, who is also known as Six. She is kind of like a diviner who goes into these dream-like states to meet these omens who give her certain vibes about the person she's divining for. That is such a rubbish explanation of this plot. But basically, it's all about omens and vibes and people wanting to know how their future is going to play out. And yeah, it's about the magic system, which, like I said, is very complicated. I'm not even going to begin to try and explain it. I think I maybe did a better job in my first video. It also has a really hilarious character in it. He's a gargoyle, and honestly, I was screaming laughing at some of the one-liners he was coming out with. He's so funny. So you've got the romanticy, dark, gothic elements, but you've also got a bit of comedy in there as well. I just think Rachel Gillig is an absolute genius. I would love to spend time inside her brain because honestly, this, to produce something like this it's just outstanding. So I'm not even going to carry on trying to explain the plot because it's just too complex for me in my tiny little brain. But if you love a romantasy and you love a gothic setting, then I highly recommend this. I absolutely loved it. Next up, we have got The Book of Witching by C.J. Cook. Now, one thing you'll find out about me is I absolutely love a witchy book, and I absolutely love a book with a dual timeline, and this has both, and it does both so well. So the present day storyline follows Clem, who is beside herself with worry after her daughter has been found on a beach with the most horrendous burns. So she sat at her daughter's bedside in the hospital, and apart from the fact that this is all very worrying and she's got horrendous injuries, her daughter actually has no memory of her own life. She tells everyone that her name is Nyx, not Erin. All very mysterious. And then we have got a storyline set in 1594, which follows Alison. She is awaiting her trial after being accused of witchcraft. And if she's found guilty, her punishment will be to be burned at the stake. Each woman is separated by 400 years, but is bound by this mysterious book, The Book of Witching. Honestly, I was hooked from the very first page of this book. Everything was just so well written. It felt really vivid, especially the courtroom scenes. Some of the descriptions were so graphic and so disturbing. I actually felt like I was in that courtroom watching all the events unfold. It is atmospheric, witchy, magical, thrilling. And if you love a witchy book, then I urge you to pick this one up, because I feel like it doesn't get the hype it deserves. I just bloody loved it. And CJ Cook is actually bringing out another witchy book this year. I think it's coming out in October. I've got it on pre-order and I cannot wait to read it. I'm so excited. Next up, we have got one that absolutely tore my heart out. The Last List of Mabel Bowmont by Laura Pearson. This one is actually available on Kindle Unlimited, and it is probably one of the most underrated books I have ever read. It follows the story of Mabel. She's in her 80s and her husband has recently passed away. Her husband Arthur loved a list, and he has left Mabel one last list. The only thing that's written on this list is Find D. Mabel is pretty sure she knows what this means, and she thinks that Arthur's last wish was for her to track down her friend Dot, who she hasn't seen for 60 years. But Mabel's going to need some help. And so begins the most incredible story of adventure, unlikely friendships, second chances, and how it's never too late to find happiness again. I fell in love with Mabel from the very first page, and I was so invested in her journey and her story. And after every chapter, I was so desperate for her to find her friend Dot. I actually did this one on audio, and I highly recommend the audio. The narrator was fantastic. It was just so well done and so beautifully written. If you want a book to tug at your heartstrings and make you cry, then I highly recommend this one. Honestly, it's one of my absolute faves. Next up, we've got The Women by Kristen Hanna. This is another one that I did on audio that was absolutely incredible. So if this is on your radar, then I highly recommend the audio. And it's another one that made me cry. So this is set in 1965, and it follows the story of Frankie, who impulsively signs up to be an army nurse, and she gets sent to Vietnam. She arrives at Vietnam and is thrown completely in the deep end. She is overwhelmed, inexperienced, and faced with the horrors of war. Not only this, but after the trauma of being in Vietnam, she comes home to a very changed America and does not get the hero's welcome that she was expecting. I actually found this book really educational because I didn't know much about the Vietnam War, and after reading this, I ended up down a rabbit hole, like Googling it and finding out like what happened and everything. It's just such a stunning book. It's about friendship and girlhood and women in war and how they were kind of like the invisible heroes behind the scenes. When I finished this book, my review on Goodreads, all it said was, the easiest 5 stars I've ever given. I am a mess. I was listening to this on audio while I was working, and I had tears streaming down my face. It's just so good and so lush, and I bloody loved it. Next up, we have got a bit of a running theme, because this is another one that I did on audio that I absolutely loved, and it's another one that made me cry. The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Also, can we just take a moment for this stunning edition that my besties got me for my birthday? I absolutely love it. This follows the story of movie icon Evelyn Hugo, who decides It's time to tell her life story, her true life story. She chooses an unknown magazine reporter, Monique, to tell her story. Monique is absolutely baffled. She has no clue why Evelyn has chosen her to tell her story, but she's hoping that this is going to be like the exclusive that launches her career for her. And so as readers, we travel back through Evelyn's memories, back through her life, where we find out all about her life in the film industry. It's full of scandal and secrets and ambition, but it's also got friendship and forbidden love. Honestly, this book didn't actually feel like a fiction book. It felt like a memoir. It felt like I was reading Evelyn Hugo's memoir. Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote this character so well that even today, I still actually think that Evelyn Hugo was a real person and I know her life story. On paper, this shouldn't have been a book that I loved as much as I did. I'm not really into this kind of scene. I'm not really into like rich people dramas and stuff, but oh my God, I cannot even begin to tell you how much I loved it. Like, this is going to end up being one of my favourite books of all time. There's also a few twists at the end as well, which I did not see coming. And it's another one that I highly recommend on audio. The narrator did an absolutely fantastic job of bringing Evelyn Hugo and Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing to life. Next up, we've actually got a thriller, An Evil Mind by Chris Carter. Out of this whole list of 20 books that are my absolute favourites, there are only actually 2 thriller books. And as a self-confessed OG thriller girly, I don't know, something seems off. I actually went to see Chris Carter last month and I took this book with me for him to sign. And yeah, he signed and dedicated it for me. So I'm literally going to treasure this copy forever. I have actually spoken about Chris Carter's books and this series on 2 of my other videos, I think. But if you haven't seen those, then basically this follows Robert Hunter and his partner Garcia. They both work in the ultra-violent crimes unit in LA and they hunt the worst serial killers, basically. This is book 6 out of a 13-book series. They can all be read as standalones, so if you fancy giving this one a try, it doesn't matter if you haven't read any of the other ones previously. And this one is kind of like Criminal Minds meets Silence of the Lambs. A freak accident leads to a shocking discovery in the boot of a car, which leads to further investigations where Robert Hunter and Garcia discover that there's been a serial killer operating right under their noses for the last 25 years, completely undetected. They knew nothing about him. This is classic Chris Carter. It's short chapters, it's fast-paced, it's easy to read, it's graphic, it's got mind games and twists. It's so clever. Honestly, this book just, I don't know, I just loved it so much. One of the characters in this, his name is Lucien, and he is another one that is just one of my favourite characters. I loved him. I loved the way Chris Carter wrote him as a character. I just absolutely inhaled it, and I bloody loved it, and I will recommend these books until the end of time. Next up, we have got Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This has only recently been released. It was released last week, and all I'm going to say is it's a bloody masterpiece. I'm not actually going to tell you too much about the plot because I actually think you should go into it blind. I was lucky enough to be sent an early copy of this book before it was published to take part in a read along. So we had like a group chat. The group chat was literally on fire. And at the end of our read along, we actually had V.E. Schwab in our group chat with us. Honestly, it was the best experience ever. Because I had an early copy of it, I went into it blind because there were no other reviews on it. So yeah, the less you know about it, the better, I think. But basically, it is about toxic lesbian vampires, female rage, obsession, revenge, all the bloody delicious stuff that I absolutely love in a book. I have actually done a full review of this on my Instagram. I will put an overlay and I'll circle the post if you want to go and have a little look, because I've actually put some of my favourite quotes from the book on that post as well. It's got 3 different characters, 3 different locations and 3 completely different storylines. I mean, I've already said that I love a dual timeline. We've got a bloody triple timeline in this one. And honestly, V.E. Schwab's writing in this is just delicious. It's stunning. It is. Yeah, like I said, it's a masterpiece. I cannot even put into words how much I loved it. It's basically everything I didn't know I needed in a book and more. And considering it's over 500 pages, I devoured it. No pun intended. It just absolutely consumed me. I've also got several special editions on order. So yeah, if you're not already sold, then I've got nothing more to say. Next up, we have got Waywood by Amelia Hart. This is another witchy book, and it's another one that actually has three storylines. So you have got the present day storyline, which follows Kate, who is escaping an abusive relationship, and she has gone to live in her aunt's cottage that she's inherited. Then we have got a storyline set in 1942, which follows Violet, who is rebelling against her father's very strict ideals on how he thinks girls should behave. And then we have got a storyline set in 1619, which follows Altha, who is on trial for witchcraft. There's actually like a little quote in the blurb that says something like, 3 women they tried to cage, but wayward women belong to the wild and they cannot be tamed. Oh my God, it literally gives me goosebumps every time. Amelia Hart is actually one of my auto-buy authors, so I read and loved this one. And I also read and loved The Sirens, which she released this year. I think it was released back in February. And her writing, it almost scratches an itch in my brain. You know when you feel like a book and the way it is written has literally been written just for you? That is how I feel about Amelia Hart's writing. It has got all the female empowerment vibes, the imagery and the symbolism. There's recurring imagery of crows throughout this book. And honestly, every time I see a crow, whenever I'm out and about, I actually feel like I'm in this story. I'm like, is that my little witch's friend? But yeah, if you love a witchy book, then I highly recommend you give this one a go. What I will say is it is quite a slow burn, and because there's 3 different storylines, it does take a little bit of getting into, but I promise you the investment pays off and it's worth it because the end is so fantastic. Next up, we have got Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Guys, I was so late to this party. Like, I literally read this book in January this year. I don't even know how long these books have been out. There has been so much hype for them, but I always get so put off by books that have been really hyped up. And also, until this year, I didn't really consider myself to be a romantasy girly. So that's another reason I was like, nah, it's not really my thing. Turns out I bloody loved it so much, it became my whole personality and made me want my own dragon. I mean, I don't even know if there's anybody else in the world that hasn't actually read this yet, or if it was just me that hadn't read it. But if you haven't read it, then it basically follows the story of Violet Sorrengail, who has only ever wanted to become a scribe. She wants a quiet life with books and history. Her mother, however, has other plans for her. And basically, Violet ends up in Basgiath War College, training to be a dragon rider. She must take part in extremely dangerous tasks and trials, and she must become good enough to graduate, because if she doesn't graduate, i.e. if she doesn't bond with a dragon and learn how to ride it, then she'll die. Not only is there the danger of the dragons to contend with, but there's also people in this college that want to harm Violet just because of who her mother is. One being Xaden Riorson, the most powerful, ruthless and handsome wing leader in the whole quadrant. Like I said, this just became my whole personality. I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was thrilling enough to keep me interested the whole way through. I loved the storyline. It was fast paced. It had dragons, danger, spice, enemies to lovers, banter. It just had it all. This is one book that I do think actually deserves all the hype. It is really good. Next up, we've got another one that I don't see spoken about at all, to be honest. Morgan Is My Name by Sophie Keach. So I'm actually going to talk about, they're kind of both of them together. It is part of a trilogy, I think, but Sophie Keach hasn't actually written book 3. I think she is like writing it as we speak. So yeah, both of them. Morgan Is My Name is book 1, and then La Fay is book 2. And I did both of them on audio. They're both just so good. They're kind of like a feminist retelling of the famous villainess Morgan, who is kind of like set in Arthurian legend times. So after King Uther Pendragon murders her father and tricks her mother into marrying him, Morgan feels trapped not just by her surroundings, but also by the restraints that the society she lives in is putting on her. But Morgan discovers she has got secret powers, and that is when the magic begins. It is all about her fight for freedom as a woman, her fight for love, her fight for revenge. Morgan is actually one of my favourite female characters. She is such a strong, powerful woman, and I just loved being in this world with her. It instantly drew me in. This was another one that the narrator did such a fantastic job of. Oh, it's just full of magic and all the female empowerment and badass vibes. And the way book 2 ended, like the cliffhanger it ended on, like Sophie Keach needs to write and publish this book immediately because I need to know what happens next. So bloody good. Next up, we've got another one that I think is so underrated, The Collected Regrets of Clover by Mickey Brammer. This follows the story of Clover, who is a death doula. So unlike a birth doula or a midwife, she has the job of kind of making people's end of life as comfortable as possible. So Clover keeps journals which kind of have the last words of some of these people that she's looked after. So there's one where they've given her like certain advice, and there's one full of people's regrets. And Clover starts thinking to herself, what is the point of giving all these people beautiful deaths when she can't even give herself a beautiful life? This book is just so heartwarming and beautiful. Clover meets an older lady called Claudia who is really feisty. She has got the most incredible personality. And I think she like snaps Clover out of her current life and how she's kind of just plodding along and coasting through life, but not actually living. This is another one that made me cry. It was just unexpectedly beautiful, and it really resonated with me on a personal level. I promise I'm not going to trauma dump or anything, but I do feel like last year I was in that sort of headspace where I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to go out. And I was kind of coasting along as well, just like Clover. And when you read books like this, I feel like they have such an impact on you. I know it sounds dramatic, but they're like life-changing, you know? So yeah, this one holds a special place in my heart. Next up, we have got one of my absolute favourite books, The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is the cutest, coziest fantasy that follows the story of 40-year-old Linus Baker, who lives a quiet life with his cat. He works in the department in charge of magical youth, and his daily job is to inspect and monitor orphanages. One day, Linus is called into work and he is given a classified assignment where he must go to an orphanage that is home to 6 of the most dangerous children, including the Antichrist. And so begins the start of a whole new adventure for Linus. He gets to know these children and their protector, Arthur Parnassus. And I'm not going to say much more than that because you just need to read it for yourself. It is just such a stunning book about found family and friendship and prejudice and not judging a book by its cover. It is one of my absolute favourites. These characters will capture your heart. I also highly recommend the sequel, which is called Somewhere Beyond the Sea. I was really nervous about going into the sequel because this one was so good. You always worry that the sequel won't live up to the first one, but the sequel absolutely did live up to this one. And more. They're just stunning. Next up, we've got Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. In my opinion, this is Alice Feeney's best book. Best book so far. I have read all of her books apart from 2. I haven't read Good Bad Girl and I haven't read I Know Who You Are. And out of all the others that I've read, this one is by far the best. It is a dark, creepy, atmospheric thriller that follows the story of Grady Green, who goes to stay on a remote Scottish island, hoping it will cure his writer's block, which he has had since the night his wife disappeared a year ago. He can't sleep, he can't write, so he's hoping a change of scenery will help. But whilst on this isolated remote island, Grady thinks he sees his wife, the wife that disappeared a year ago. Things start happening. The setting is very creepy and mysterious. There's this mist as well that just descends out of nowhere. So it's just so atmospheric when you read it. And the twist absolutely floored me. Like, I gasped out loud, audibly gasped when I read the twist in this. I just love it when a twist gets you so good that you just never saw it coming. It just smacks you right in the face. This just has all the ingredients for a perfect thriller. Next up, we have got Freak Slaw by Jane Flett. This is another one that I never see anybody talking about. It is kind of like queer carnival horror. And this and Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson are the only horror books I've ever given 5-star ratings to. It is set in a drab Scottish town of Pitlaw, which is a direct contrast to the vivid travelling funfair Freak Slaw. The townspeople in Pitlaw are repressed and desperate for a change, and in comes this funfair with the brightest, most colourful characters who start seducing these townspeople. It is kind of a mixture between American Horror Story, The Greatest Showman, and The Craft. I don't know if you ever watched that film when you were younger. That was like a classic in my teenage years. So yeah, the vibes in this book were just immaculate. It is queer, raunchy, and visceral, and the writing in this book was an absolute feast for my brain. It is all about deviating from societal norms, and yeah, it's just completely unhinged. I absolutely loved it, and I just really wanted to join this Freak Slaw family, to be honest, after I'd read it. Next up, we have got Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. This is book 1 in the Ruinous Love trilogy, and it is kind of like a dark romance, thriller, comedy. It basically follows the story of Rowan and Sloane, 2 serial killers who fall for each other whilst hunting other serial killers. It is sexy, psychotic, and completely unhinged, and I bloody loved it. I will say it is very gruesome and gory in parts and will probably put you off orzo pasta and ice cream for the rest of your life. But I just had such a fun time when I was reading this. I did it on audio, and again, the narrator was fantastic. Also, the Irish narrator that played the part of Rowan was absolutely dreamy. I think this is technically supposed to be like a dark romance book, which I don't typically read a lot of, to be honest. But I think because it had the serial killer thriller elements and the comedy elements, it just made for the perfect read for me. I just absolutely loved it. I actually really need to read book 2 and book 3, but they follow different characters. So I don't know how I feel about that, because the reason I loved this so much was because I loved Rowan and Sloane. So yeah, maybe I'll dip my toe. Maybe I'll give book 2 a go. Next up, we have got Costanza by Rachel Blackmore. This is probably one of the most underrated historical fiction books I have ever read. It's set in 1636 in Rome, a city that's absolutely buzzing with gossip and sin. I mean, what more could you want? Costanza is a respectable wife until she meets Gian Lorenzo Bernini, a renowned sculptor and member of Roman society. And the moment they meet, a forbidden attraction is born. Their secret love and scandalous affair absolutely consumes them. And Bernini has this idea that he wants to make Costanza immortal by sculpting her. But all hell breaks loose when he reveals this sculpture, because obviously everybody realizes now that they've been having an affair. Betrayed and banished, Costanza is a fallen woman, but she's not planning to stay down for long. This isn't a book that I thought I'd enjoy as much as I did, but I absolutely loved being in 17th century Rome. It was so vivid and immersive to read. It was another one that I actually felt like I was there while I was reading it. It was just so descriptive. I absolutely loved Costanza's character, and this is actually based on a true story and real events. So it blows your mind even more when you read books and then you find out they're based on like true stories and real people. If you love a historical fiction, then definitely give this one a go. I was really pleasantly surprised and I loved it. Next up, we have got The Hanging of Hetti Gale by Tess Burnett. This one is actually on Kindle Unlimited. There's actually a little quote on this that says something like, "A mother's love will never die, a mother's fury story will live forever. So this follows the story of Hetti Gale, who builds a new life for her and her son after escaping her abusive father. But one night, Hetti is assaulted by a group of men who lie about their encounter with Hetti, and she ends up on trial and sentenced to death for something that she didn't do. This is another dual timeline book. So that's one timeline. That's the past timeline. And then we've got the present storyline, which follows Alice, who has discovered her cousin has gone missing from her cottage on the moor. But how is Alice's cousin and Hetti's story related? And is Hetti's ghost still seeking revenge and justice after all this time? This is actually such a sad story that has stayed with me since I read it last year. I highly recommend if you like a historical fiction book. This is another one that's just so underrated and deserves way more hype. Next up, we have got By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. So what if Shakespeare didn't actually write all of his plays and instead there was a woman behind some of them? This has a dual timeline that follows two completely different women from completely different walks of life that both write under a male pseudonym because they know that their plays won't make the stage if they're written under their female names. They are separated by hundreds of years, but both of them are forced to hide behind another name. This was my first Jodi Picoult book, and it definitely will not be my last. It is absolutely outstanding. It is a masterpiece of a book, and it is a book that really made me think, and I love a book that makes me think. Basically, from this video, I think we've established that I love books about women in history and dual timelines. Even though this is quite a long book, I didn't feel like it was as long as it is. I was invested the whole way through, and it is just an incredible story about the fight for acknowledgement and recognition in a male-dominated space. I just bloody love strong female characters. Next up, we have got The Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli. I actually did this one on audio as well. And again, the narrator was bloody fantastic. It is actually a YA book, but I'm not typically a YA reader, and it didn't read as YA at all, in my opinion. I actually put this book off for so long because of the hype. I've said it before, but when a book is really, really hyped, it actually makes me really nervous to read it because I feel like you just go into it with such high expectations. You're almost setting yourself up for disappointment. But this follows the story of a witch and a witch hunter, and it is the ultimate enemies to lovers romantasy. Rune is a witch. She is the Crimson Moth, and she must keep her identity a secret if she wants to live. And then we've got Gideon, the witch hunter, who will stop at absolutely nothing to bring the Crimson Moth to justice. It is slow burn, full of tension and forbidden desires, all the things I love in a romantasy. I loved learning about the history of the witches. The pacing was spot on. It was full of mystery. I just loved the whole world, to be honest. So this is actually part of a duology, and I also highly recommend book 2, which is The Rebel Witch. Both of them are incredible, and I cannot wait to read more from this author. I really hope she's writing something soon. And last but not least, I've saved my absolute favourite to last, The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. This is another one that I honestly don't feel like I'm articulate enough to even begin to describe what it's about. It is the most incredible book I have ever read. It's a bold statement, I know. It follows the story of Cassie, who works in a bookshop, and one evening, one of her favourite customers gives her this mysterious book. At the very front of this book is written a message. This is the Book of Doors. Hold it in your hand, and any door is every door. So basically, when you hold the Book of Doors in your hand and you're in a doorway, you can transport yourself to any doorway in the world. So if you want to go to Paris for breakfast, you can go to Paris for breakfast. It is a magical book that will take you anywhere you want to go in the world. But the Book of Doors is so much more than that. And this is another one that I actually recommend you go into with as little knowledge as possible. Just go in blind and have the most amazing time when you read it. I wish more than anything that I could read this book for the first time again. Cassie ends up plunged into this whole world of adventure and danger. There are other books, not just the Book of Doors, that people are using to do terrible things. And yeah, it is just, honestly, Gareth Brown's brain. I'm sure I read somewhere that he actually has a full-time job in the NHS. So he wrote this book whilst also having a full-time job. The man's a bloody genius. As somebody that loves magical realism and somebody that loves books about books, this was just the perfect book for me. We actually read this for my book club in March, and my book clubbers are really fussy. They are quite harsh. They're quite critical. They don't give out good ratings lightly. And the average rating for book club when we read this was 4.6 stars. It is one you will probably see me talk about all the time on this channel. It is just incredible. So there we have it, my absolute favorite books of all time. I had so much fun making this video. I could literally talk about these books all day, every day. Like, I never grow tired of talking about my favorite books. If you've read any of these books, then let me know in the comments so we can yap about them a bit more. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you decide to pick one of these books up, I really hope you love it as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button. It really, really means so much to me, and it really helps push my content out, especially as a new channel. I'll see you all next time.